Greetings everyone, my name is Melderon and welcome to another Defcamp Melderon TV video. Today we're going to do something very special. This is a conversation and discussion about the Elemental Shaman in PvE, in raids, in Classic WoW. Now I'm sure you're probably wondering or thinking that, you've probably seen a lot of my videos. I make a lot of Shaman guides and I made an Elemental Shaman guide already. However, this one's a step up. This is a little more advanced, going into some topics that we learned from Classic WoW, seeing Elemental Shamans in raids, having the data. And this has all been written and presented by the Elemental Shaman Discord. Now, they've written a guide and a spreadsheet for Elemental Shaman, and this guide you're seeing right now is based off of that, and it was written by Tamaka, Haruka, Javan, Fuquan, and the rest of the Shaman in the Elemental Shaman Discord. The link to that Discord will be in the description below. Please go over and show them some love, because there's a lot of work and Theorycrafting coming out of that Discord, and with all my guides, there are timestamps below if you want to go to a certain thing. Now, let's get started. My name is Melderon, as I already said, and I have Javan from the Elemental Shaman Discord with me here to go over the guide. Javan, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey guys, this is Javan. I play an Elemental Shaman on the Herod server. I've been playing since the launch. This was my first character, and I've been playing Elemental as soon as I hit 60. I have not played anything else. There's one point I do want to make, is that this is the first time I've played Shaman. So anybody can do this. This guide will definitely look very difficult to some, but I do want you to know that coming from somebody that just picked up Elemental Shaman from nothing, you guys can do this. It just takes a little bit of work, and you can do great DPS in any raid that you go to. That's
great to hear, because I think a lot of people think, you have to be like a Shaman veteran playing for 10 years to know how to play this, and it just goes to show that with the right training and the right kind of mindset, you can do this and be competitive in raids, and that's really, really awesome. Because as you know, Javan, people give us a lot of hate, or give you guys a lot of hate as meme specs. You know how that always goes, right?
So, oh yeah, I mean, I hear that pretty much every day, and then the best feeling that you can give somebody, or the best thing you can have, like for yourself, is that when you look at those DPS logs and you're beating out mages and warlocks and sometimes even warriors and rogues, and then they when they want to talk bad about you, just all you got to say is check.
Yeah, just check the logs, right? Check the DPS meter, right? That's awesome. Okay, so this is the table of contents slide. So basically, this is where we're going to be going over today. Brief introduction: why would you bring an Elemental Shaman to raid? Races and professions, talents, rotation, gear, and stat weights. And rotation and stat weights and gear, Tamaka and his teams have made a great spreadsheet, and we'll go over how to use that and download it. And then number 7 is getting ready before a raid, what consumes and buffs you should have, and then boss-specific strategies, and then we're going to say goodbye for today. So, who are we? This guide was made up using collaborative inputs from many world top 20 Elemental Shaman, including Tamaka, Haruka, Javan, who is here with us today, and Fuquan. You can join us on the Elemental Discord, and the link will be in the description, so please head over there, because that's the only way you can get the spreadsheet, is by going on the Discord and downloading it from there. So, now on the screen, we have Tamaka, who is the #1 Elemental Shaman in the world. As you can see here, he's doing a lot of DPS. I mean, Razorgore the Untamed, over 1,000 DPS. Javan, how's this possible, man? That's crazy.
Honestly, he's insane. I will say this right now, that he is in the very top Horde guild in the United States, if not in the world. He is a very good Elemental Shaman, and he has a very powerful raid to back him up. I believe on this fight he did not have PI.
Wow.
So Razorgore, I think has the kill time on there, is that his kill times are very, very short, and that
18 seconds. Yeah.
And that is exactly where Elemental Shamans shine. The shorter the fight, the better they are. They are, as you know, in PvP, they are bursty. So if you have a very short burst of a fight, you could just put out an incredible amount of damage in a short period of time, and you don't have to worry about mana or anything. You just go, and that DPS right there, that's the proof of it right there.
I mean, 18 seconds, you're not even popping mana powder demonic rune in 18 seconds, pretty much, right? I mean, it's like, you don't even have to worry. That's the insane kill time.
Yep, you put your totems down before he spawns. You pop your trinkets and you go. You put your lightning bolts and your chain lightnings on cooldown, and then you just do as much
as much damage as possible, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's pretty. This is an amazing log. I'm looking at this now. Wow, the amount of DPS he's putting out is rivaling warriors. and obviously rivaling mages, but it's just an amazing thing. And I see the one that's not 100 is Cro-Mag, and I guess that's kind of tough because you need to have the resistances, right? That's kind of how that fight works.
Yeah, so that one's kind of funny where we actually have problems with the Warcraft logs that we actually want to try playing like an enhancement shaman. So
Interesting.
if we don't get our nature vulnerability, we just go in and start hitting them with our weapons. So if it's fire vulnerability, do our fire weapon, frost brand, and so forth. So we just, and then you also want to assist the raid with the spells when there's like shadow arcane. But for the most part, that one's completely luck based, and he's gotten the short end of the stick on that one.
Gotcha. So when he does get his RNG, we'll bless him, and he'll get 100 probably on that as well. So no pressure.
We'll obviously on that one.
Yeah. And now we're gonna move to yours. Pretty damn good as well. Rank 10 in the world. This is amazing. I mean, like, you know, we're not much difference here. Hundreds and 99s all the way through, and it seems like you've gotten lucky with your Cro-Mag fight.
I did at the start, yes. I actually ranked 5 at one point, but then there's just 33 people past me now. So the Cro-Mag is definitely a volatile fight where there's just no way of knowing if you're going to get a good parse or you're just going to be completely screwed with the vulnerability. So that one, I wouldn't worry too much about that one on numbers, but everything else is completely in your...
Yeah. And the reason I'm showing this to you guys, the audience, is I'm not trying to be elitist here, like show up. I want you to make sure that you know that this guide is written by people who know what they're doing, right? And people who put in the work and people who know about their class. And like I think the most important point you said is that your guild has to be pretty fast for this spec to shine. Is that true?
Yes, and also kind of no. And
okay.
The best way I can explain is that absolutely, if you have a great guild that will bring you to raids, and like they have really fast kill times like mine and Tamaka's, then yes, you will be able to shine you still have to do full consumes and mana pots and all that, but a great guild will definitely carry the Elemental Shaman classes. Now, if you're in, let's say, a good guild, but like not the best, or like the kill times are maybe like twice as long as the ones we have, it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. You just have to change your rotation. You have to change the way you gear. It's not going to be as good, obviously, because you definitely want to be able to kill things fast. But that being said, you can still play Elemental Shaman in a somewhat decent guild.
Okay, good to know. That's good. Because now, you know, obviously not all of us can be a top 10 guild, so that's a good thing to know. So just so I'm making sure, Tamaka's in Onslaught and Scarin, which is my server, and then you're on Herod, which guild?
I'm in the guild Storm.
Storm. Okay, just so we know. Cool. Nice. Perfect. Yeah. So these are kind of what numbers you can potentially see with this class, which is probably, I guarantee most people watching this did not expect that. So, when I first saw Tamaka's Warcraft lives, I was like, "There's no effing way this guy's putting up 1,000." You know, it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's just amazing what the class can do, because on paper. And this is the next slide here. Why bring an Elemental Shaman in the raid? As Tamaka puts in the guide, and you guys put in the guide. On paper, Elemental Shaman should be able to pull the most DPS compared to any cluster. Correct?
Yeah. On paper, yes. They can do very comparable, if not even more, than a lot of those classes out there. Caster, that is.
Right.
I will say right now, we're not going to beat warriors and rogues. They are insane. But in terms of just straight casters, yes, we are very comparable to them, if not better in some cases. But it does kind of become a little problem, because as we are mana restricted and we do want more gear to be able to do more damage, so do those mages and warlocks that also compete with our gear. And then you kind of also have to think that since we are Elemental Shaman, it's going to be kind of hard to get that gear for us because they don't think it's going to benefit us more. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but we do what we can. If we can bring the damage, we can definitely have our name in there.
Yeah, and I have to admit, as a raid lead, you know, even though I play Shaman, I run the Shaman Discord, all these things, it would still in my mind be like, you know, during Loot Council, I'll be like, you know, this probably should be better on a mage. But, you know, it's like, it's just, we've been ingrained with that kind of thinking for so long that we don't funnel gear to quote-unquote Elemental Shaman or meme specs or anything like that. But in reality, if they're pulling their weight and then your fights are pretty quick and you know what you're doing as a guild, honestly, it could be more impactful to give that gear to an Elemental Shaman, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually trying to convince my gear or my guild to give me particular piece of gear on Nefarian, the lock, the Luckamere, the one-handed mace spellcaster. But as you know, it's a healing weapon. For the most part, it's best at healing slot. But what people don't understand is that that weapon is best in slot for us all the way through Nax, all the way up to, I should say. But for them, it's only good until like AQ, where they can get like way better weapons. So what I'm trying to say, So what I'm trying to say is that you need to inform your guild, because people they're not aware of what shamans are, or elemental shamans are. They don't know like what their set priority. They don't know what kind of pieces they want. So you have to communicate with your loot council, whoever's doing your loot, even if it's like your DKP system. You have to communicate what's good for you. Otherwise, they're just assuming, and they assume that these pieces are going to be better on quote unquote real classes.
Right. So Tamako and you guys put up these numbers, and I think it's a great way of thinking about what Elemental Shaman can potentially do, and the work required. So the top 99% of mages are producing approximately 570 DPS, while the top 99% of Shaman are producing 460. So about 100, 105 or so less than the similar ranked mages. And then you look at the 95%, it's about the same, maybe about 80 DPS difference. And then he puts up the 90% mages and shows it's only 383 DPS. And the 95% Elemental Shaman are very comparable to the 90% of mages. So closing the gap and doing the little bit more effort, you can do just as much as a mage. And I think this is what the point he's trying to make here in this point, correct?
Yes, and another point that you also have to think about is that there is a lot more mages than there are elemental shamans. So the competition, while it also kind of has a flip side, there's less competition, so the numbers aren't as impressive. But you have to think about it that since there's just so many more mages, we're talking like probably 100,000 more. Like there's just thousands more mages than elemental shamans. So to get to those 95% parses of elemental shaman are actually not that hard. As long as you are putting in the work, you're getting your buffs and you're getting your consumes, that is not hard to do.
Because I think the way to kind of think about this is that Elemental Shaman, it already takes a kind of special person to be that, I think, and being able to go the extra 10% or 9 or whatever, how many percent it would take to get to compete. So if you're doing that, you can already do better than mages in most guilds, because mages aren't. I feel like, and this is a very broad characterization, but I feel like mages are just kind of like, yeah, we know we're going to do X amount of DPS, and we're just going to do that, Where I feel like if Elemental Shaman, someone who plays that class and picks that class is kind of the person who's like, I need to show up a little bit and do a little bit more extra. You can easily do that with the knowledge and the world buffs and the consumables, correct?
Yes, so it is a good way of saying is that if mages don't have to put in as much effort to do about the same amount as DPS as the Elemental Shaman, putting in that extra work. So, as I said, like the Elemental Shaman is definitely going to need to take some work to be able to do comparable damage to mages and warlocks, other casters in your raid. So, but if you can do that, you can definitely have very comparable, if not better, DPS than a lot of your casters in your raid right now.
Right. And then the second most important reason being a shaman is that you'll bring more support to the raid than mages or warlocks ever could in most situations. I mean, depending on what group you're in, you can throw down Wind Fury Totem. Everybody knows what that does. 20% chance for an extra melee attack. Your melee are going to love you for that. Grace of Air, if you're in a hunter group, or if you would magically have the mana to totem twist, you can also throw down Grace of Air. You have resistance totems. You have disease and poison cleansing totems, which is great for Chromag. You have grounding totem, which will soak up Nefarian's bolt if he's actually during phase 1 of Nefarian. I use that all the time. Tremor totem, obvious reasons you're going to use it for. Obviously Ani and Nef, like all these fights that have kind of a fear. You can battle res yourself. That doesn't cost the raid anything. As long as your cooldown's off on reincarnation, you can come back to the battle. And sometimes you're going to want to strategically do that. We'll get to that in a second. Oh, later in the guide, excuse me, not a second. And then finally, you can heal. Mages and warlocks can't, right? And since you're stacking spell power, your heals are not going to be as great as the Resto Shaman but you're still going to be able to put more effective heals out in the situation. So you bring much more support and utility than a mage or warlock ever could. Anything you would like to add to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. So we did forget one totem in this little guide is the Tranquil Air. So ideally, you want to be put in a warlock group, a group of 4 warlocks, and then you yourself. The reason being is that later on in the phases, and even just kind of starting right now, warlocks are starting to bring up some numbers, and they don't have any threat reduction as well as us. So I find myself being threat capped with a lot of my tanks before Thunder Fury, and that 20% on Trinkle Air is very, very important, not only for you, but for your warlocks to do that. Just 20% more DPS over 5 people is insane. Over like the greatest example I can give to bringing a shaman to raid is that instead of bringing 5 warlocks, you can bring 4 warlocks and 1 elemental shaman. So you have 4 warlocks doing 100% of their damage versus 5 warlocks doing 80% of their damage.
Yep.
See how there's like 20% overcross? It's like you're basically missing a whole warlock. And you can just have another elemental shaman that can heal, that can put other totems down. It's just makes sense.
So this is a really interesting point because myself and Orkbit made this point months before Classic came out about this exact thing. We said, if you have 5 warlocks in a group, they actually have to cut their DPS down to 80% of what they could produce. You throw an elemental shaman in there, now they can go 100% balls at the wall, and the shaman's producing DPS. And if you add that all together, that group's doing more DPS than if it was just 5 warlocks. And we were talking about that for months. But we actually went on. We actually did the thing on Countdown the Classic podcast about this specific thing, and it's great to hear that there's actually support for that hypothesis. So that's really, really awesome, dude. That's really great.
Funny enough, I actually did get it from you guys, but
nice.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you don't want to be in a Wind Fury totem group or even Grace of Air, because if you're putting down totems for a melee group, that means you're going to be closer to the raid. That being said, Wind Fury is far more important than what you can do. Wind Fury is insane. If you're gonna be in the Wind Fury group, yes, you do have to be in there. Just you got to watch your DPS just a little bit so you don't pull aggro. But if you're in a group that has to put Grace of Air, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, like every totems are that's what a shaman is. They have their totems. Totems are so imperative to our gameplay and how we go about everything. So having that threat totem for the whole group, and then also that mana regen is for them as well, so they don't have to tap as much. It's a great thing to have. And then the last point with the healing, it's very important to know that yes, you can heal, but you are coming to the raid as a DPS, not a healer. Believe in your healers to do their job, and they'll believe in you to do your job, which is DPS. That being said, if there is a bad pull and like if some healers die and you guys are struggling, absolutely stop damaging and start healing. Absolutely. Don't let your raid die, because the more of your raid die, the less buffs they have. The less buffs they have, the less damage they do. The less damage they do, the longer the fights. The longer the fights, that means you're doing less damage overall. So you want your raid to carry you. So that's how you do higher damage, is so that the raid kills shit faster. Excuse my language.
No, it's fine. You can. It's totally fine. You can say whatever you want. Yeah. So that's great. That's great to know. There's a lot of good information here, and I just love the fact that we can bring a lot more utility than other classes could, and that's really what makes us really special.
Absolutely.
Okay, race and profession selection. So obviously, if you're new to Classic WoW, you may not know this, but there's only one race in Classic WoW that produces any caster type DPS boost, and that's Troll. Berserking is Horde side, right. Horde side. You know, when we get to TBC, Draenei have some specialty, but that's in TBC. So, but for now, on this side of the game, you only have one choice, really, if you want to optimize your DPS as a Elemental Shaman, and that's going to be Troll. For PvP, of course, Orcs and Taurens have their usefulness with stun resistance and with War Stomp EM combos or War Stomp heal combos. But if you're going to specifically be going to try to parse, that's what you're going to be going Troll, correct? I mean, there's really no other option.
Funny you say that, because I actually play Tauren myself.
Oh, you do play? I was going to ask if you played. Yeah.
So, the race, yes, Troll you're going to get that tiny edge with the Berserking talents. That being said, it's not detrimental. So play what you want. Honestly, I played Tauren because of the War Stomp. The Elemental Mastery, Chain Lightning to Earthshock batching combo is so insane for Tauren. Or obviously Orcs having the stun resistance for PvP. Obviously, I'm talking in the PvP sense. There's some case in PvE, War Stomp can help an AoE pack, because you can just stun the whole pack, then stop damage for 2 seconds for all. Yeah. So play what you want. Don't assume that you have to play a troll because you want to be the absolute very best. Don't do that, because there's top players that do not play troll. There's tons of orc shamans. There's tons of Tauren shamans in the discords. Don't be pressured to play troll. But just that being said, if you want like every single bit you can get out of a class, play troll.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, I totally agree with you, because I play orc, right? And I heal him resto, and there's no benefit to playing orc as a resto shaman at all. But I play it because I like it, right? So that's another thing too, is that I know people like this. You're looking at your character model constantly, right? And if you're not happy with what you're seeing, or not happy with the animations, then play what you want to play, right? I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Absolutely. Truly, the most damage that you get out of the class is the prep work that you do before raids. That's what you're going to, not because you're playing troll or Tauren or orc. You do whatever you want, but I will say, as a note, troll, yes, is the best.
Yeah, technically, right? Because of berserking. Would you say that there's kind of like a strategy to get yourself at lower health to pop berserking?
There are some cases, like say in Molten Core, you can just stand in the lava for a little bit on Baron Geddon. There's definitely and even on Ragnaros, there's some instances where you can reduce, or you take some health, or you take some damage to get that better berserking.
Yeah.
But there's some fights that do raid-wide damage, say like Fire Maw or Veil. So you could just take damage a little there and then pop it at a certain point before you get healed, and then you'll get a little bit of a boost. Reliably on every single fight, not to my knowledge, other than using a dark room, but you want to save that for regenerating mana.
Right. So I guess if we don't have this on the slide, so if people don't know what we're talking about, the ratio is dependent upon your current health pool. So if you're at, like, you can get up to 30% increased haste. At full health it's 10%. So you can get up down to 30%. So what my question is, I don't play troll. I don't know if you know this, but does berserking work on the HP that you have when you popped it, or is it like, does it change your haste if you get healed? I guess is what I'm trying to say, during its duration.
So from my knowledge, it's from when you pop it, your health pool at that point, that's what it stays at. So you can get healed afterwards, but if you pop it at like 30% health, it stays at 30% haste for the duration, to my knowledge.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know either. So I was just thinking about this as we're talking about it. Like, I never really actually thought about that. It just goes to show you that this game never ceases to amaze you, or there's always things you can always ask. So engineering, being that we want to optimize our DPS, the only profession that allows you to do that is engineering. And you want to bring sapper charges, grenades, dynamites, and all those things for AoE fights, right? And that's required by pretty much all. I know Onslaught requires all their members to be 205. Was it 205 engineering? Yeah.
Yes, the 205 for even my guild requires it as well, even for some alts. And there's also trinkets that also help. There's the battle chicken that you can pop and then put your normal trinket on if you're in the melee group. That can help out the melee. The engineering is so broken in Classic that you honestly should not be any other profession other than engineering when you're playing pretty much any class if you're going to be looking to either raid or PvP.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best profession in the game, for sure. So yeah, if you want to top the charts, you're going to need engineering. So your second profession is basically only locked up when you have your Bloodvine set, because you need 300 tailoring to get that 2% crit bonus, right, from the Bloodvine set. So you kind of have to be a tailor if you want that 2% crit. How valuable is that 2% crit, would you say?
Honestly, 2% isn't much, but if you're going to be playing the elemental class as it is, you definitely want to get as much as possible. So that 2% can vary between, say, I don't know, like 12 to 16 spell power overall.
Okay.
But it is still going to be substantial over the long run, because you're going to be using that Bloodvine set for a good long while. That set is insane. It's actually insane. So I might as well get that little extra bit because you're going to be using it. You're not going to be wanting to make money on your Elemental Shaman. So that's the only downside with having your two professions locked up. So if you can find a reliable way with like maybe an alt or some other way of making money, do that. And you have these two professions to increase your damage in raid as an Elemental Shaman.
Yeah, just roll a mage, right?
Honestly, I just finished my mage to 50. I'm going to start boosting people. I'm going to make so much.
There you go, dude. Yeah, you can make so much money as a mage. It's ridiculous. God, mages have, they really have a lot of benefits.
Yes, and that being said, we're not completely hopeless when it comes to making money. At least right now, we can definitely do like Dharma East runs. We can, as we're farming our demonic runes in Ajara or Felwood, we can get Fell Cloth, we can get world drops, we can get just raw gold from just drops. So there's still ways to just make gold as a shaman. I would recommend finding superior ways in the long run, but just because you have your two professions locked up doesn't mean that you're going to be hopeless. So definitely use these professions to your advantage.
That's true. That's basically how I make all my money, is either by picking up herbs or by, when I farm my demonic runes, just selling felt cloth and stuff like that. That's exactly what I do. Okay, so when you hit phase 5, you can get your 3-piece tier 2.5, and that'll kind of take over the Bloodvine after that, right? After that, you can open up your second profession. Would you say?
Yes, but the problem with that is that 2.5 is kind of shared with some of those quote unquote real specs. So it's going to be a little bit hard pressed to get some of those 2.5 pieces.
Yeah.
Definitely if your guild prioritizes like the other classes on the same one, which I believe includes warriors. So you're going to be a little bit hard pressed, but if you can get your hands on a few of those pieces, depending on what pieces you have, you would want to replace, like say you want to get like the helm, shoulders, and chest, or whatever combination. You want to plan out which ones you want to get beforehand, so you can tell your guild, hey, I want these 3 pieces.
Okay, good point. Cool. All right, talents. So we have this talent portrait in front of you guys, and the ones that are red are required. Okay, those are the ones you need for obvious reasons. We'll go into why. And then the green ones are kind of up to you, right? Is that kind of what you guys are trying to portray here in this image?
Yeah. So this one can be a little bit confusing, so I can go ahead and explain it.
Sure.
So yes, the red are absolutely mandatory. The reds are going to increase your damage from your basic rotation, not including any totem with fire totems damage, but like just your chain lightning, your lightning bolts, and what have you. Yes, the red are completely mandatory. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. You must get these. Now, with the greens, it can get a little bit tricky. So there is a better option for like straight PvE. Like, for example, you have Elemental Warding and Call of Flame in the second tier of Elemental. Those two, in particular, the Elemental Warding can help you out pretty significantly in raids because you can get up to 12% reduced fire, frost, and nature damage, which can save your life. Which, if it saves your life, that means it saves your buffs, which increases your damage over the long run. So anything to help your survivability is definitely nothing to like scoff about. That being said, I don't take those talents. I actually use Call of Flame, the 3/3 Call of Flame, which increases your damage or fighter totems, which if you wanted to put out a Fire Nova totem in an AoE pack or like Magma right afterwards just to get that most AoE damage you can. And then I also, which is kind of controversial, I do the Eye of the Storm, which is in the 4th. So the 4th is strictly PvP. I'm not even going to butter it up. That is strictly for PvP. It has definitely helped me out, and like if I'm getting ganked with world buffs, it's definitely helped me out because I can actually like heal myself and kill somebody. But it just kind of goes to show is that all of these in the green are completely mandatory, or optional.
Right.
You do not need them. So I hold myself on this one is that once I hit 60, I have not respect one single time since I hit 60. I've had the same spec since the beginning.
This build, sorry to interrupt, but this build I think is the most versatile build in the entire game out of any other class. You can do everything with this build.
You really can.
You can heal, you can PvP, you can DPS, you can dungeon DPS, you can farm. I made a video on this because of that fact. Like, it's such a powerful spec.
And that's what like a lot of people like Elemental Shamans, and they're scared to play Elemental Shaman and raid and get that gear to be better. But like you can truly like have such a very versatile spec choice of all your talents and then still be able to heal, DPS, and all that. So truly, like, just make sure you get the red the talents, but the green is completely up to you.
Yeah, for sure. And let's just go through the red one. So Concussion and Convection in tier 1 increases your damage by your nature spells and lightning spells and shocks by 5% and decreases their mana costs. Obviously, that's pretty required and obvious. Elemental Focus, I mean, you get a 10% chance of getting a free cast. That's great. My only question is, Obviously this is not going to proc when you want it to, right? So if chain lightning's on cooldown, do you kind of wait for it to come off cooldown, or you just kind of go with your rotation? Would you say?
So the rule of thumb is that if it's not off cooldown, but it's 0.5 seconds later, like if the cooldown for your chain lightning is 0.5, as specific as it is, 0.5 seconds later, yes, it is better to stop casting and wait for chain lightning. Other than that, just do a rank 10 lightning bolt if it's on cooldown.
Got it. In the same tier, Call of Thunder increases your chance to crit by 6%. You do not want to pass up on this. Storm's Reach increases your was it 6 yards, I believe. So yes. How important is this, honestly?
This one is probably the least mandatory of them all. I will still say, in my opinion, that it is mandatory because this one helps you with positioning your character. So 6 yards, while it may not seem like a whole lot, it can allow you to stand further away. It can help you get one more lightning bolt off a running target. It can help you out in some regard. A lot of times not, but just having that 6 yards can definitely help you out, both in PvE and definitely even in PvP if you plan on using it. So I would definitely take it. And it's only 2 points.
That's a good point. The only alternative I would think about those 2 points are putting them in improved fire totems. But again, that's if you're just doing PvE stuff. I think that's why you would put 2 points in there. But again, having those extra 6 yards in a PvE encounter in a raid sometimes can be very, very beneficial too. So it's up to you on that one, in my opinion. Elemental Fury increases your critical strike damage bonus from 50% to 100%. So if you guys don't know, in Classic WoW, spell crits only do 150%, not double damage. So melee hits do, but spells don't. This allows you. So let's say your average lightning bolt damage is 1,000. If your crit would be 2,000. So why would you not get that? I have no idea, but definitely get that. And then before we get to Elemental Mastery, Lightning Mastery decreases your cast time by 1 second for your Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt, bringing your Lightning Bolt down to 2 seconds, Chain Lightning down to 1.5 seconds. Does not affect the spell coefficient. This will literally increase your DPS. This is what you want, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And then EM. Let's talk about EM. So, if people don't know, what's the little weird wonky thing about EM in Classic WoW?
So it's actually kind of funny. This spell it wasn't as popular that I noticed at the very start of Classic, because a lot of people thought that in the restoration to the Nature Swiftness would be superior because you get an instant cast spell. It's just better. Now, there's a lot of little things about Elemental Mastery that some people may not know that may not be intended at the time, but since it's Classic, they're keeping it as what's the word, as classic as possible. Is that with Elemental Mastery, there's a little thing called batching. So if you use Elemental Mastery with, say, Chain Lightning, and you are also in range to use a shock spell, specifically Earth Shock, you can actually use both spells. If you cast Earth Shock right as the Chain Lightning goes off, you can have both of them benefit from Elemental Mastery. That means both of them will crit, both of them will be free. Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah, this talent right here is like, oh my god, especially if you're the PvP encounter when you just blow someone up with a Chain Lightning and Earth Shock combination, dude.
You're telling me as I play the Tauren, like War Stomp into Elemental Mastery, Chain Lightning, Earth Shock, I one-shot so many people, even warriors. It's insane.
Oh, and if you have a Fire Nova down too at the same time, and they all kind of hit, oh my god, yeah, it's just so much damage. So as you said, EM is definitely better. Like you said, if it wasn't because of that batching, there'd be a different conversation here. But it's definitely an amazing.
Now I do want to go in just a little bit, that since there might be a few people that are still kind of on the fence about it because they still think like, oh, with the Nature Swiftness you can have an instant heal to save you or a tank real quick, or you still have like an instant cast spell. Now the biggest problem that shamans will go down to, and a lot of people already know this, is that mana is an issue. Now, if you have that instant cast spell, whether it be Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt or whatever, sure, you get that increased damage for that spell. But you also have to realize that it's not free, and it will not crit. So you have to realize that having Elemental Mastery is better for your damage, and just overall, like there's so many more applications for Elemental Mastery, whereas Nature Swiftness it can be helpful. It can be. But I think in a little less situation, it's more situational.
Right. So my question with EM and Storm's Reach is they're kind of contradictory in a way, because don't you want to optimize EM and get that shock damage out as well? with it in the raid?
While yes, you kind of want to position yourself close enough anyway. So if let's say the storm reach is kind of more, and that's why I was saying it's not as mandatory, but it's going to be for those fights where you're going to be moving around. There's going to be mobs that are going to be moving around. It's going to be for those times where you want to have that little extra range just in case.
Gotcha. Okay. Because otherwise you want to be 20-yard range because of EM, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that being said, you don't. There's not going to be a whole lot of times where you don't have to be in shock range. So yes, for Elemental Mastery, it is beneficial to use a shock with Elemental Mastery batching, but that is not that you shouldn't go out of your way to spend that time to run up and get into range and then waste a lot of that time because you want to be casting constantly.
Correct. Okay. Let's move on to Restoration, which you're really only doing for two reasons. So basically, in my opinion, in Tier 1, I personally would probably go with the decreased mana cost because if you're going to have to heal as an Elemental Shaman, at least in my experience, it's because of an emergency situation. And the 5 points in Improved Healing Wave does not affect Lesser Healing Wave, which is going to be your emergency heal. What do you feel about that?
I completely agree. So that, again, these are definitely mandatory. These kind of go back and forth with a lot of... We have a discussion on this a lot in the Discord. The idea that the reason why I go with Tidal Focus, the mana reduction, is that when I heal, as you said, it is more of an emergency, so I'll have to either lesser heal or specifically to raid heal. So that's usually when a healer's died, there's a lot of raid-wide damage going on. So chain heal doesn't benefit from the improved healing wave. The 5% on Tidal Focus does. So I find myself chain heal spamming or specifically healing a tank with lesser healing until they're like full, so they want to top them off as best I can, and then I go into healing wave if I absolutely need to.
Right.
But I think I find more benefit from Tidal Focus.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree there. Again, it's up to you, but I totally agree with Javon there. So Tier 2, the default here is to put 4 points in Totemic Mastery, Totemic Focus, excuse me, which reduces your mana cost for all your totems by, I believe, 5% per rank. And then Imp Reincarnation. I mean, you could put 5 points in here. You can put 1 point in Imp Reincarnation and 5 points in Totemic Focus. It really depends on your raid right here. I mean, like, how often do you wipe? How many shamans are there, kind of thing.
Pretty much. And I wouldn't really be thinking of Reincarnation as a raid wipe mechanic, unless you are in a guild that does it. I would be using it as you're saying, where we'll talk about it a little later on, as an actual DPS increase. So that's kind of goes into the more advanced things, which we'll go into later, but that's something to consider. That being said, I actually have 1 point in myself. That would be one thing I would change if I were to respec, which I'm trying to hold out as best I can just for the fun of it.
Yeah, no, but, that's awesome.
Because if you think about it, Totemic Focus with 5% off. So let's say a very important totem that we have to put down is Mana Spring Totem. 5% off. So with those 5 points in, my totem costs 75 mana. That's not a lot. You're going to save like maybe upwards of 5 mana.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's not crazy. Of course, you can kind of like say like, oh, every mana can matter because once you get like you could get that little bit of mana could have meant you being able to cast one more lightning bolt, which is actually pretty substantial. So I will say that having improved Reincarnation 2 points in that is probably the better choice instead of having 5 points in Totemic Focus. Again, it's all preference.
Yeah, good point. So Tier 3, you're going to put 1 point in Totemic Mastery because that increases all your friendly totem ranges at 30 yards. No-brainer, especially if you are moving around a lot. Now, Nature's Guidance, this is a great talent. Increases all spell and melee hit by 3%. You definitely want this because the hit cap for casters in Classic WoW is 16%. Getting any hit you can from talents is definitely worth it, and I would definitely put points in here. And then, and then, of course, you have the most important one here, Call of Thunder, which increases your crit by another 5%. So that's 11% from talents. Huge.
Yes, it is. Actually, I would argue that Nature's Guidance is more important than Tidal Mastery. That being said, Tidal Mastery is still very, very, very good to have. That 5%, along with a lot of the other talents that you have, and as well as having that increased crit damage, it's very, very good to have both the Tidal Mastery 5 points and Nature's Guidance 3 points. Both are very good.
Yeah, and as an aside, you also get 5% healing crit from that talent as well. So in case you do have to heal, it's a little bonus to that too. So that's always nice. I love this build. God, it's so good. Any variation, like either 30-0-20, 30-0-21, or 31-0-20, like I think that it is literally to me the most amazing spec in the game because it has implications for every part of WoW, in my opinion.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's just the power of playing an Elemental Shaman, that you really can do anything with this.
Yep, absolutely. You can make a few changes here and there depending on what you want to really focus on, but still, it's just an amazing spec. Okay, the 3 rotations, and we're gonna get into how to optimize this and how to decide which rotation we're going to be using with an amazing spreadsheet they developed. But let's go into the nitty-gritty here. So there are 3 different rotations you can use, and this will create 2 breakpoints depending on fight length. This is very important for stat weights and understanding which items to use as well. So I just want to bang home here, you should always use your rune and mana pot on CD. You want to make sure you have as much mana as possible, but the goal to end the fight is with 0% mana left. Why is that?
If you're ending the fight with, say, like 30% mana, like just like, oh, you used a lot of my mana, but there's still 30% left, that's 30% of your mana that could be used as damage. Now, the best way that we can DPS is using Rank 10 Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning on cooldown. Now, Chain Lightning is very mana inefficient, but it's very good at dealing damage because it's faster cast time and it does typically more damage than Lightning Bolt. So, if you're having 30% left over, that means that's 30% of your mana that did not go into them. That can be like 50 points of DPS. Like that can be substantial, truly. So you want to be able to put out as much as you can with the mana pool that you do have.
Correct. And just to talk about Chain Lightning, so the Chain Lightning is a faster cast time, so its coefficient is smaller than Lightning Bolt. However, it does more base damage. So, and it has a quicker cast time, like you said before. So that's another thing. DPS is higher. Theoretically, there is a point where Lightning Bolt will do more damage than Chain Lightning, but you need so much spell power to get there. I think I did the napkin math on this. It's like 1,000 spell power or something like that, which is unobtainable in Classic WoW. So don't worry about that. Chain Lightning will always do more damage on average than Lightning Bolt. If Lightning Bolt crits and Chain Lightning doesn't, obviously Lightning Bolt will do more damage than Chain Lightning. But what they're trying to say here is that the optimal rotation is Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning. The reason because of this is clear that Chain Lightning has a 6-second cooldown, so you can squeeze in 3 Lightning Bolts between the next Chain Lightning refresh.
Yeah, and they line up very perfectly. As soon as you cast that third one, that Chain Lightning just comes off cooldown, so it's perfectly tailored to be able to do that rotation over and over, as long as you have the...
Yeah, this is the most mana expensive of the rotations, correct?
Yes, so this one is very specific to the guilds that can really take down bosses very quickly. So even with Mana Rune and a major mana potion, I still struggle to pull off this rotation on some fights, not all of them, but if you can get on some fights like, say, Razor Gore on the very first boss fights in BWL, if you can maintain your mana when Phase 2 starts, you can more than likely use this rotation to get as much damage as you can.
Right. So rotation B, Lightning Bolt, rank 10 exclusively. So this is not using Chain Lightning at all. And would you say this is kind of like a medium length fight rotation?
Yeah, I'd say so. That being said, you will actually still be using Chain Lightning. So
okay.
You will very much want to be paying attention while you're raiding. You can't just be a mage and just cast Frostbolt. You have to be paying attention. The reason being, you have the talent because of clear casting, yes.
Yeah.
So you want to cast Lightning Bolt, just Lightning Bolt, but you need to be able to react to when your Lightning Bolt goes off and you get a clear cast spot. You need to stop casting and start casting a Chain Lightning as fast as you can. The faster you react, the better your DPS. If you can't react faster than a half second, I wouldn't worry about it and just start casting rank 10 Lightning Bolts constantly. But to get the most out of your spec, if you're doing that rotation, you want to Chain Lightning on clear casting procs.
Right. And what I do when I dabbled in before I started raiding, I was actually Elemental all the way through MC because I didn't want to respec because MC was too easy. So I you can heal as fine as an Elemental Shaman. But what I did is I just did a stopcast macro. So you do / stop casting, next line / cast Chain Lightning, right? So even if you're in the middle of a Lightning Bolt cast and you see, you casted your previous Lightning Bolt, clear casting proc, you already clicked on the new Lightning Bolt, just hit that button once and it'll stop casting and then start recasting Chain Lightning. So that's what I would use for that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good button to have in a couple cases. That would be a very good way of like increasing damage. Truth be told, I actually don't use the stop cast for that one specifically. I probably should, but just because I have so many buttons to also worry about. But what you can do is you can just tap forward, like if you have your mouse on your so you can spin your camera and then just click. That moves you forward just like the millimeter. That'll stop your casting right there, and then you can start casting Chain Lightning. Whatever works for you, truly. I would recommend doing with the macro. I'm just used to just tapping forward and then Chain Lightning right there. But if you're just getting into the class, I would absolutely recommend getting a stop macro Chain Lightning button.
Yeah. Because in private servers, actually clear casting would proc when the spell hit the target, and in classic it procs as soon as you complete the cast. So it's actually a lot better.
So that's actually a good point that I noticed on my mage is that on spell hit, clear casting goes off on mages.
Really?
But our clear casting is different where as spell goes out, that's where the clear casting comes out. So if you came from a mage, it does not work the same way.
I did not know that. That's really cool. Wow, that's really flavorful. That's really neat. All right, the third rotation, you're going to alternate using rank 10 and rank 4. So the way correct me if I'm wrong, the way I understand this is you're going to go through your whole mana bar using rank 10, use your rune and mana pot on cooldown. When you get to... Oh, sorry. You're going to use your whole mana bar on rank 10. When you get to 0, you're going to rune and pot to get yourself back up to what? 65? No. Okay.
Sorry, I want to cut you off on that one real quick. I didn't want to...
Yeah, I want to make sure.
That is not advised. So what you want to do is you want to look at what can the mana pot do, what can a Dark Rune do. So a Demonic Rune can do a 900 to 1500 mana at the cost of some life. So that 900, 1500. So you want to use Demonic Rune at the 1500 mana mark of used mana. So you want to get that cooldown started immediately. You want to use that as soon as you can to put it on cooldown sooner, so it's up sooner. That's the idea. So, and that kind of goes the same with Major Mana Potion, specifically Major Mana Potion. That it gives you 1350 to 2250. So you want to use the Mana Potion when you are at 2250 deficit. So you can use weak auras. You can use just kind of like basic math, kind of like, oh hey, this is my mana right here. I should use the consumable here. But you want to put those on cooldown as early as possible. So specifically, you want to use your Mana Potion first and then Demonic Rune because Mana Potion gives more. So you want to get that on cooldown faster.
So exclusively use rank 10 so you get to that deficit mark and then pop. Is that what I'm getting? Or you're combining 10 and 4? There. Yes.
So in that rotation, yes, you want to use, and this kind of actually goes for all rotations. You want to use rank 10, and specifically in rotation A, you want to use the Chain Lightning still.
Right.
But once you get to that level of mana, you want to use those consumables as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. All right. And then I like this keeping your mana percent and boss percent pretty close. That's when you balance rank 10 and 4. So if you're trying to keep those bars as close to each other as possible in percentage.
Yes, and that one specifically, so you still want to do rank 10 at the start. So you want to put those cooldowns, or put it on cooldown as fast as possible. So you use the rank 10. You could probably do some basic napkin math to figure out how many casts of Lightning Bolt do I need to do before I cast this? And then you can kind of figure out whatever works best for you. Mm-hmm. Then make sure you're as efficient as possible with your mana consumables, because that is the most important thing for Elemental Shamans. And everyone knows this. Mana is an issue, so you want to get the most out of your consumables.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right, Rotation A provides the most DPS but requires the most consumes and buffs and stuff like that. So you need to be so in order to get that rotation in most fights, you need to be on top of your game, guild-wise, yourself-wise, world buffs consumed, correct? Is that kind of...
Absolutely.
Okay.
This one is... There's even Tamaka runs into sometimes that this rotation is very hard to pull off, definitely on some of those longer fights. Don't feel bad that you can't do it and you just want to do the most amount of damage. Chain Lightning in the short term can definitely increase your damage, but it will hurt you in the long run if you use it without clear casting procs, because it's so mana inefficient. So you want to be able to get more out of your mana on those fights that you would otherwise run out of mana if you were to do rotation A. So don't feel bad about doing like rotation B or even rotation C. Just you don't run out of mana.
Right. Cool. All right, we're going to bring up the spreadsheet now. So we're on the first page of the spreadsheet. This is what the spreadsheet looks like. This is what you can download from their Discord. Please do that. It's a really, really amazing tool. And the first part here is you're putting your character stats in, right? So you put in your spell damage. You put in your crit that you have, not counting your 3% crit from Nature's Guidance, right? So this is additional crit in D2.
Yes.
Okay.
So bringing it up right now. Are you looking at the first tab?
Yes, first tab.
So the first tab is interesting. So this one is kind of like just like a basic way of running some stats. If you want to just like type in your stats for your base gear. So with no buffs included, this is where you want to put in your base stats with your gear on. No buffs at all. So yeah, you don't want to include any specs or anything like that. Whatever it says in your character stat sheet, that's where you plug in.
Got it. Because like, I see at the bottom, it has the talents already. Like if you already had 11% crit, you can click that. And the 3% hit, you can click that. So this is not counting those things. So this is like, yeah.
Yeah, so the buffs on the side are already automatically included when you first download the spreadsheet. So if for whatever reason, like you can't flask for that raid, you can make that 1 by the consumable a 0, and then that will completely change the way that your gear is set up. That'll change your rotation, all that kind of stuff. So you just want to type in your base stats, and then it will include all of the buffs you honestly should be getting anyway. So don't include those buffs post. Do the pre with your gear on and no buffs.
Hey, there's even a Thunder Fury button. Nice. So you plug all those things in. It tells you put in your fight length. So I had a really long one here. Let's just say 60 seconds. It's like a minute. And that'll change. So actually I had 240 in there before. Let's say it was a really long Neff fight, and it had the rank 4, rank 10 rotation. And then if I put 60 seconds, which is only a minute, it goes to the Chain Lightning rotation, the Chain Lightning plus 3 Lightning Bolt rotation. And your DPS, of course, skyrockets to 641.9 compared to 437.7. So this is a great tool. Is there anything else I'm missing here about how... so it has stat weights, too. That's another thing we should probably talk about. That also changes.
Yeah, stat weights is a very fickle thing. So so you have 60 on right now. So before you change that number, look at the spell power coefficient and the intellect coefficient.
Yeah,
so
yep.
A lot of people think that intellect is not as important because it doesn't increase your damage directly, other than like a little bit of crit here and there. But if you were to change that fight duration from 60 seconds to like 120 seconds, there's a very considerable difference, as you'll see.
It's much more impactful.
Yeah, so it comes up almost to there. And then if you are, say, in a slower guild, and there's some fights that can go up to 3 minutes, so do 180 seconds, then you're really going to start seeing...
Yeah, but MP5 takes over a lot more, too, in that situation.
Oh, so that's actually my fault.
Yeah, there's a breakpoint there, because...
there's a breakpoint there. That's my fault there.
That's okay. No.
The breakpoint it kind of goes down to with your mana consumables, so... that being your major mana potion and your demonic rune. That's where the kind of the breakpoint is. I believe there's a breakpoint like a little bit before that, and sometimes the intellect can actually be more beneficial than a single point of spell power. So per point, at some fight lengths, intellect can be more valuable than spell power.
Correct. Absolutely.
Not often.
But it does happen. So yeah, near 120 is pretty close actually. Let's see, 130. Actually, it starts to go down. 100. Yeah, at 100, it's pretty much there. It's pretty much one int. So an int is 0.99. So there you go, 100 seconds. So yeah, it really depends. See, this is why your itemization matters, right?
Yeah.
And this
definitely
is
like
cool.
as a guild per guild thing. So you want to tailor your gear truly to your guild, based on your fight lengths, and you can do this per fight. Like you can go to your logs and see how long the fight went, and then you kind of just type in, oh, this fight lasted a minute and 30 seconds. You type in a minute 30 seconds, then it'll tell you the spell or the coefficients for all your stats, and then you can adjust your gear accordingly per fight if you want to get really nitty gritty with your gearing.
This is awesome. Yep. So let's go to the second tab, gear. Now, how does this work? Because I actually have not played with this very much.
So this one is actually the tool that I use. This is I guess you could say the more advanced way of doing it. But this actually helps you on the third tab, which we'll get to a second, is if you type in your gear, this will obviously put the stats of all your gear. You'll have enchants on the enchanting will obviously be included, so it's assuming that you're enchanting your gear properly and all that. So you put all your pieces, like it even has like green pieces.
Yeah, green 41 spell power. Yeah, wow.
So you definitely want to like put all your gear to the point. Don't it's like, oh, I like this gear, so I'm gonna put this gear on. No, put your gear in there perfectly, and then at the bottom again, it'll tell you your stat weights, your DPS, and funny thing is that it'll actually change based on how long the fight length is on the first tab. So
yeah, so let me change that. Let me change this to 60 seconds, and then gear. Is it okay? So yeah, it's hard to see what changed because you're going back and forth from tab to tab. Let me just. Yeah, so I'm assuming things are changing here depending on fight length, correct? Is that kind of what we're?
Yeah, well, yes. It's that second tab with all your gear already plugged in. It will change the some of the buttons. Like DPS is probably the only thing that will really change.
Gotcha.
And then it'll tell you like your best rotation, and then it'll like all that kind of stuff.
So the gear on this right now is best in slot for what I says no? Okay.
So that's actually Tomika's gear at the time he made the spreadsheet. So that's just kind of like a baseline. And then you want to type in what you have. That's why it's very important. I wanted to tell him like leave it blank, but he wanted to.
Yeah, so I put Mishandari in there, and yeah, things change obviously. Okay, so that's interesting. So points in crit went up, and points. What is points? Points is
that's kind of like the score of the gear. So that could be like say like the stat weights give those points. So let's say you have 24 intellect and then like X amount of spell power. That's where the points get adjusted, and that's how he can just determine if something's better than with your stat weights.
I see. So yeah, put your gear in here. And then you can put in, and then you go back to the stats and buffs page, and your DPS will update basically. So all these sheets work together essentially, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is a really neat tool, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of background to this spreadsheet that Tomika doesn't want it out, but there's a lot going in the background that makes this work as
good as it does. Yeah, this is great. And then the last tab is upgrade. So what is this?
So the upgrades, this is the beautiful thing, and then there's people that come in all Shaman Discords. They're just like, hey, what's best in slot? I need a best in slot sheet. You know, they're like, tell me what gear I need to get.
Right.
And as we've been talking, we've been saying it over and over again. Stat weights change. Your gear it also changes. There is no best in slot for you specifically. Or excuse me, there's no best in slot for everyone. So your best in slot will be different from mine and Tomika's a bit different from mine. So it's all based on your rate. So based on, and you do it yourself, like the fight length and all that, you kind of just have to go step by step, like the fight length for this one, fight length for that one. But what it does is that on the upgrade tab, based on the gear that you put in, it will offer upgrades for that species. And it's going to be the top 5 in a specific phase. And on the top, you can see there's a phase.
Yep.
So you obviously want to change it to a phase that's relevant. You can play with it once you figure out your gear, and then you can kind of like, oh, hey, what in phase 5? What's my best slot? You can do it there, but for now, let's go in phase 3.
Yeah.
And then you can see what's best. So there's obviously clear winners, like say like Mission there is ridiculous. That helm is insane, and then like the right neck is insane. Those two will pretty much always be best in slot. But then when you kind of get down to it, so if you go down to, let's say, what's a good example? I think one of the trinkets is a good one. The NAC. NAC is very notorious. So NAC, Nature Alignment Crystal, is the trinket that drops in BWL that increases your spell damage by 20% for your spell. It's really good.
Yeah, it's an awesome trinket. Yeah, for sure.
But it also increases mana cost. So Tomika put in. He actually accounted for this as well. In the DPS is that it costs about a 500 mana or so to use a trinket on full casting. So that's like a lightning bolt, 2 lightning bolts even. So that's something to think about when you're doing this sheet. So in the longer fights, NEC actually goes down in value pretty substantially, actually. But in shorter fights, it's ridiculous.
So if I change this fight to like 60 seconds, I wonder if it pops up now. Yep, there it is, Nature Alignment Crystal.
So this all it's all adjusted for fight length, like what the trinkets does. Even TOEP, Talisman of the Ethereal Power.
Ethereal Power,
correctly?
yeah.
I have that trinket. I can say it.
Yeah.
But no, that's the thing is like all of these will be adjusted based off the fight length you put on the first tab, your gear in the second tab, and then it'll tell you what's best based on your stat weight from your gear tab in the upgrade tab. It's really good tool.
Thank you guys for making this. This is so cool. I have to ask, are you guys planning on doing this for TBC? Because I'm rolling Elemental in TBC. Just one.
That one's on Tamaka because I don't have any Excel.
Right. Tamaka, if you're listening, please do one for TBC.
That's all we can do is, hey, if we get a lot of support for it, I'm sure he would definitely be down to do it if he's going to be playing DP.
Nice.
No promises, though.
Yeah, no promises. This is great. What a great tool. I want to just thank you guys for doing this because there's not a lot of, it's always great when someone puts the energy and time towards this because you guys aren't getting paid. You know what I mean? Like this isn't something that you're doing for money per se. You're doing it for because you want to help the community out. This is just an amazing thing. So I want to thank you guys for putting this together.
No problem.
Okay, so we finished rotations. We went over the gear sheet. Next is stat weights. We kind of went over this already, but I just want to kind of briefly gloss over because we went over the spreadsheet with stat weights and how we said that it's highly dependent upon fight length in your guild. It's not really dependent upon. There isn't one sheet to be like this is the best in slot for every situation. Correct? Is that kind of what hammer home again?
Yeah, definitely. So gear, and I'll say it again. You need to pound this into your head, and anybody else that's wondering about Elemental Shaman, there is no best in slot for you, or for everybody. You have to figure out what works best based on fight length. Fight length is very detrimental because mana is such an issue for Elemental Shamans, and it all revolves around that. So if you can figure out like the fight length for your guild, and then base your numbers off that, that's where you can get the most out of your shaman, is by just doing a little bit of homework. Truly, it all kind of boils down to that.
Right. So one point here that Tamaka, or you guys said in the guide, is that crit is heavily overhyped for PvE, and spell power has much more potential to increase your DPS over the long term. Can you
oh my God.
explain that a little bit? Yeah.
So this, and it's still kind of ongoing. It's definitely toned down a little bit, but early on, oh my God, everyone thought that crit was just the most insane stat for shamans, and there's some reasoning behind that because like, oh, you get the increased crit damage, and then you also get like all this benefit from crit. But when it kind of boils down to it, in some cases, 1 point of crit is like 6 spell power. It's not a whole lot, truly. So hit is like upwards of 12 to 14, but there's no way we can get the hit caps. And even then, there's some pieces of hit gear that are better than just straight raw spell power. So people think that you want to get all this crit and absolutely get all the hit you can because you want to be hit capped. That is not the case. All spells kind of go into itself. So they say like, if you get 1 point of crit or 1 point of hit, that's 1% more out of 100 spells to crit or hit. Now, with spell damage, every single one of your spells benefits from 1 point of spell power. So
right,
that's where everything has stats weight for a reason. Is that it's all based on how much you get out of per spell, and with crit and hit, it's only based off like that 1% out of 100.
Really interesting. Okay. And like we said, so it hits this about the same thing. So 1% hit, and when we really don't think about it this way. 1% hit is just one more spell hit per 100 spells, right? So it's not like this amazing thing from the heavens that comes down. Spell power can outweigh it, right? And like you said, one hit's approximately 12-ish spell power. Would you say in most situations?
Again, it all changes based on your gear, but
right.
From what I've seen, it goes from like 12 to 14. It all varies. That being said, hit is still an incredible stat, and you should get it when you can, as long as. But that's where the upgrade sheet comes into play. Is that, hey, is this sheet with, or is this piece of gear with hit on it? Is this better than say this other piece of gear that I have? That's where the upgrade sheet comes into play and really helps you out in determining if it's actually better or not. Like for example, the Bloodvines that has like all this hit on it, as well as a bunch of spell power. So those pieces are obviously going to be insane because it has like upwards. They sometimes have some pieces have 2% of hit on it, and then you also have the spell power in addition. That's why they're so good.
Great. This is great information. Okay, moving into what you need to prepare yourself for raids. I mean, the obvious thing right now, we are a class that needs as much help as we possibly can because of a combination of many things, mostly the preconceived notions of our performance by the community, but secondarily because of our mana restrictions. So you want to get world buffs. If you guys know me and people watch the videos and watch the channel, you know how I feel about world buffs. However, you cannot deny the impact it has and the ability for it to help out classes that need help.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I do want to. I kind of want to expand on that. I didn't know that. I'm assuming when you say you felt like that way with world buffs, you were saying that you don't really particularly agree.
Well, my issue with world buffs is I feel like it makes the game. It incentivizes you to not play your characters. That's the problem with world buffs.
It's actually funny that you say that. So, I played a classic realm, like a private server, and I played a mage. So at that time, as I was leveling and like talking with some people that played those servers, like about world buffs, I thought world buffs were the most ridiculous thing. I thought they were so out of the way and so unnecessary. Like it's just like if you die, you lose them. It's ridiculous. Like that people spend all this time to get these. But for our class specifically, and even like for a whole raid, if you have 40 people getting these buffs, 40 people, specifically the DPS, your kill times increase dramatically.
Oh yeah.
As well as like the overall time spent in raid, so you can be done with raiding sooner. If you can get your guild your whole guild to at least get
Nefhead, yeah.
At least that. The Direwolf buffs are also insane too on some classes. If you can get those every single week for the whole raid, that's where you can honestly increase your damage the most, is getting your raid to get world buffs. Truly.
Yep. Because this is a synergistic effect between kill time and your DPS, so that's the most important thing. Yeah, my only issue with world buffs is, well, I have two. One, I feel like it trivializes the content, but again, that's it to our benefit as Elemental Shaman. And two, raid logging. That's my issue with it. The world feels more dead to me when people are just raid logging. Like, log in for buff, log out. Log in for buff, log out. That's my only issue with world buffs. But do I think that they don't have... they're extremely beneficial. I would never say that. They're extremely beneficial.
Yes. If you want to play Elemental Shaman to the max, you have to use every trick in the book. And
right.
World buffs, every single one of them, specifically some of these really big ones like the Onyxia Head, the Songflower. DM is good for the survivability and then the 3% crit. But honestly, I value the stamina on the one of those buffs. It's like 15% stamina is going to keep you alive in some situations, so you can keep the rest of your buffs, as well as the huge amount of crit on the Nef and Onyxia Head. The Darkmoon Fair, I didn't actually even know about this existed until Darkmoon Fair came out. The 10% increased damage, what the hell?
Dude, it's so amazing. Like, so I want to be clear to the audience. If I was playing Elemental Shaman, I would be getting these buffs. I'm not saying I would not. So to make sure I make that entirely clear to the people listening. But yeah, so just Ani or Nef, DM, and Songflower, that's 18% additional crit. 18% additional crit for you guys. 15 elect, and then a much larger health pool. And then 10% increased damage to Darkmoon Fair, the MP5 from Rend, ZG, extra intellect. Again, these buffs will make you a superhero, basically.
Yep. Thankfully, we don't benefit that much from Rend Head. We only get like, was it 10 MP5?
Yeah, MP5, yeah. But the HP
is only lasts an hour. Yes, the 300 health can definitely help you in some situations. That being said, it is, as I said, it is skippable. So it's kind of, you're starting to get a little bit more few in between. So I wouldn't really go out of your way for it. Get it if it's there for you, but I wouldn't like really go super out of the way just to get a Rend buff over the other one. Other buffs are definitely mandatory over that one.
Yeah, 100% agree. So if you have your world buffs, now you have to worry about consumables. So this is a list of what these are needed per raid. Will you use all of them? Maybe not. You can bring them over to the next raid, but this is what you should show up with, correct? Ready to go.
Yes, so actually I made this list myself. I did kind of go a little overboard, and I will still stick with this list. It is daunting, to say the least, for some people. They will see this and they're like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah. Specifically the flask. Now, the flask in particular, flasks are like 250 gold a pop
Yeah.
before ZG came out on my server alone. So that is a huge time investment per week to be able to just to get a flask. But if you want to show up into raid and show off and parse and like put your class on the DPS meters and show like, hey, this is what I can do, and show your guild, hey, I have damage, I want gear. This is the way. That's how you get gear. Is you come to raid flask. It shows your raid that you are ready to party. You are showing up. You care about your class. You care about the raid. You're doing a lot of damage. You're gonna get pieces of gear. That's how you get gears. You show up with all of these consumables, fully world buffs. That's how you get into raids. That's how you get gear.
100%. As someone who's on a loot council, as someone who raid leads, if an Elemental Shaman came in my raid with this stuff and put up the numbers I would not consider his class to be a detriment when it came to the decision to make him loot. I can tell you that 100%. Yeah.
It all boils down to like you want to get rid of that stigma because if you show up with no consumables, you will be contributing to that stigma. No joke. Like, you cannot show up to a raid without consumables and world buffs. You will be a meme spec at that point, truly.
Mm-hmm.
We benefit hugely from the amount of tools that are out in the world, and we have to use them to the best of our ability.
Yeah, and that's why I want to make sure I'm very clear when I say, I have my personal feelings about world buffs and consumables or whatever you want to say, but when it comes to the brass tacks of it is, if you show up with these things and if you do your homework, I would never like penalize someone for going the extra mile. This means they obviously care about the raid, they care about the guild, and they care about their own performance. And I cannot stress enough how much this impacts loot council decisions.
Yeah, so for some of those people that are worried about, oh, hey, I can't get my raid to let me raid as Elemental Shaman, because I hear that a lot. They want you just to heal instead. If you give them the numbers, show them like you've done your homework, you open up a trade with them and show them what you have in your inventory. You have your flasks, you have your arcane elixirs, you have a boatload of mana potions and dark runes. Like if you show them that you were ready to party, then they'll give you a shot. And then those raids that give you a shot, you make sure that you shine a lot brighter than a lot of those casters in there. One raid will be enough for you to get a for sure spot for future raids.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, a lot of these things are commonplace. Like Dark Demonic Runes, Major Mana Potions, Runtime Tuber Surprise, Gordark Green Grog, Lips, Holy Waters, Mage Water. A lot of these things are easy to get, honestly. There's only a few things on here that are a little bit tougher. And, just doing that extra time and energy. The Cerebral Cortex, I think it'll blast lands for that. But, or you buy them, right? You can buy them on the AH if you needed to.
You can buy the things to complete the quest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, honestly, most of these things on this list are what I would expect every raider to bring to a raid. So, there's only a few things like in here, like you said, Javon, that are a little bit extra, but I think it's unique. You should do it. And then Phase 4 comes out. We have an addition of Mage Blood Potions, which is 12 HP 5, and the Brilliant Wizard Oil, which is 36 spell power, 1% crit. That is huge. So make sure you get these in Phase 4 and beyond.
Now, the Brilliant Wizard Oil is going to be... I'm not looking forward to those, because those...
Yeah, they're going to be expensive.
They are incredibly expensive, specifically with the enchanting mats required to use them. But 36 spell power. that's
and
a lot.
1% crit. Yeah. So that's what about 30? That's about 40 or some spell power worth of spell power, right? With the crit included.
Yep. But honestly, I think the biggest thing to come out of ZG is the ZG buff, which again, it's another world buff, but 15% increased intellect.
Yeah.
Is like, and with their mana issues, that allows us to potentially do the rotation A, the 3 lightning bolts,
right,
with a chain lightning on cooldown. Then that will increase our DPS more than.
Yeah, that could literally breach the breakpoint. That buff right there. It's a very good point. Okay, MC boss specifics. There's only really 2 here. So both for Lucifron and Baron Genin. So you want to go over these real quick?
These are kind of very nitty-gritty kind of stuff, so this is kind of things like maybe a top guild would do, so I wouldn't worry too much about these, but this will definitely help you out if you are having problems on some of these fights. So let's say like Lucifron, if you're in a melee group or in any group really, you're obviously aware that they have the mind control. So if you put down a grounding totem, they can definitely eat some of those mind controls so you don't chain lightning someone to death when you elemental mastery proc and you just kill one of your raid members. So yeah, that will definitely help in some cases, not all, but that's definitely something to think about. And then with the Luciferon or just truly Luciferon and Barrageddon, they have the mana drain debuffs. So if you have a raid that, like my raid actually doesn't dispel at all, they just tell you to pop one of these and just kill it real quick.
Yeah.
But if you have, let's say, not the most responsive healers, or they just don't dispel you quick enough and you just need every single point of mana that you can get, this is a very good option just to pop one, last 30 seconds. It'll pretty much keep you safe for a good while. And you'll save a ton of mana in the long run. And that'll allow you to keep your numbers as high as possible.
Cool. So for BWL, we have 5 here. So let's start with Veil. So this is great because I always have Lightning Shield up, and I never realized this until now. Don't use it on the pool.
Yes. So actually, I was not aware of this as well. I didn't really think about it. And it's again, it's very kind of nitty gritty, but it's definitely something that could happen, and we want to reduce any coulds that could happen because if you were to accidentally pull aggro and the tank is not on top of like taunting or pulling the aggro right as it's attackable, it's going to turn towards you. It's going to smack you. It's going to get it could kill you in one shot. It could put it into a bad position. It can all be circumvented by just keeping a lightning shield off for that fight in particular.
Good point. Good point.
And then with the
so even after the pull, you'd keep it off. Because that is damage going out, right? I mean, well, it's also GCD you're losing, right? So that's the other thing.
While that is true, it actually does more damage than a lightning bolt overall.
Interesting.
But it doesn't crit. That's
right.
That's the issue right there.
Crit. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's also so it's the not crit part. If it crit, then I think it would be worth it. But it's definitely not the case. And then another thing you need to worry about is using your GFPPs. What's a GFPP? It was in the consumables list, I believe. So you want to have the greater fire protection potions. Greater specifically. Don't go cheap on us. You want to get the best as you can get with the greater fire protection potion, and your whole raid should be using these. Again, this is if for a more casual guild, they don't really worry about that, and they just heal through it. But if you use a GFPP as well as have if you use a pre-GFPP and then also use one during the fight and have a priest bubble you, that reduces the amount of knockback that you take. Now, if the little less knockback you have, the more your spells go off, the more damage you do. So if you can convince a priest that can if you can spare a global cooldown to bubble you every 15 seconds, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if bubbling you kills a raid, it's obviously not worth it. But if your raid is just knocking this boss down like it's nothing, get that bubble to get that little extra less knockback.
That's pushback. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And this is why Resto Shaman, we use the primarily Lesser Healing Wave during this encounter because it has the shortest cast time and it's less prone to pushback. Of course, if you're tank healing, you want to stack Healing Wave, so you're going to be still using Healing Wave, but still, it's something we do as well.
Yep. And of course, since you have no mana issues, you can do the rotation A and just go as crazy as you.
Yeah, there's no reason not to use rotation A as an Elemental Shaman and Veil. Please do not use any other rotation. Suppression Room. This is an obvious. Oh god, all shaman here. God, it just pisses me off. Don't use your totems when you're moving through the suppression room, guys. Please don't use your totems.
I mean, if you are very, very, very good at keeping up with your totems,
at refreshing
you can.
Them, yep.
But there's just some times where you just you forget about that one mana totem that's all the way back behind you, pull some welts, and it pulls the entire room. So honestly, it's just best to just not worry about it. Even for the warriors, if you're in a warrior group and you do Wind Fury, in some cases you still want to, but it's not that important. So just if you're not very good at keeping your totems in check, just don't drop any, because one totem left behind causes a whole extra amount of mobs that you need to pull, which slows you down in the long run. So just don't drop any for the safety's sake.
Yeah, for sure. And in TBC we get Totemic Recall. Oh man, I can't wait for that. You're
telling me.
Yeah, I know. So Fire Maw. So this is a strat where your whole guild wears FR gear, right? This is a different strat than most guilds, but I would say that this is something that you guys don't hide them behind a wall or anything like that, right? You just blow them up.
So this one's interesting. So I am just now starting to use fire resistant gear for this fight. My last one, I actually died because a rogue pulled aggro and lost all my world buffs. But that was the first fight that I used just even a little bit. I had like 150 fire resistance, and that's super achievable. You have your Onyxia cloak, you have your Onyxia neck for attunement. You probably have the DM spell power trinket that had a little bit of fire resistance on there. Even some pieces like your leg plates of the 10 storms has fire resistance. So if you can get up just a little bit of fire resistance, it actually helped out way more than I thought it would have, like in a million years. So if you, and I think the consensus on the Shaman Discord is that you want to get to around 300, and then you'll never have to leave to like let them fall. But even with 150, even with a little bit, I like reduced the amount of time that I had to spend out by a very large margin.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And you definitely want to pre-GFPP because you're going to need the mana pot cooldown during the fight. I like that point as well.
Yes.
Chromag. You must melee Chromag using Rockbiter, Flamesong, and Frostbrand depending on vulnerabilities. So this is interesting. When would you use Rockbiter? Just out of curiosity.
Arcane or Shadow. So that just to get that little extra. Truly, it is very negligible because we're not going to be doing much melee damage as it is. But if you want to get that little extra bit, that's where you would want to use them. From my knowledge, if you're using a one-hander and offhand, you want to use Wind Fury. If you're using a two-hander like a staff, you want to use Rockbiter, if I remember correctly. So you get more out of each hit. I'm sure there's some breakpoints. I'm not an enhancement shaman. I don't know exactly. But that's where those come into play. But you definitely want to use your fire weapon for the fire vulnerabilities, your frost for the frost, and for nature. Now, nature can be scary, so you're obviously going to be putting up some big numbers. But let's say you get 2 nature vulnerabilities in a fight, you're going to be hell pressed for some threats. So that's where it kind of comes into issue. You have to pay attention to your threat. Have the threat meters pumping all the time. You never want to pull
air totem if you can too.
If you're not in a Wind Fury group, absolutely. You have to watch your threat because if you pull aggro, it's going to potentially reposition the boss, and it's bad news. So please watch your threat on those fights, and even in all the BWL, because a lot of those bosses are not tauntable. So you have to be very careful.
Right. I'd love to see the numbers on those fights, man.
I mean, so I will say this right now. One lightning bolt into an elemental mastery combo with Earthshock, that's 3 spells hitting at once. I can do 15,000.
Oh my god. There's no way a tank can survive. You have to lip right after that, right? I mean, like, you'd have to.
Oh, you bet your ass I'm lipping. And this is like on trash. I live on trash because I just want to see some big-ass numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. You'll see a 5,000, a 6,000, and a 7,000, one after another, all at once. And your damage will shoot up instantly. That can put a lot of people's like, oh, I want to see those numbers, and I want to crit, and I want to do an insane amount of damage, which you'll do, but then you could potentially kill your raid. So you have to be extremely careful if you get more than 1 nature resistance, because you could potentially wipe your raid, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, for sure.
If you wipe your raid with top meters, it's because you wiped the raid. You're going to get way more shit for wiping the raid than just because you got top meters. So just be careful.
Yeah, for sure. And on Neff, of course, grounding totem in phase 1 because you can negate Neff's bolts, his shadow bolts, tremor in phase 2 for the fear, and then I love this: suicide on can be worth it on bone constructs. So you just go in there and sacrifice yourself like a kamikaze pilot and come back to life. Is that kind of what you do?
So this one is like the more advanced one. I haven't been able to pull this one off because my whole raid actually sappers it on the pull as well. So I believe the best way of doing it is you have to run ahead of everybody and sapper way before everybody else, so they all turn and hit you. That can be hard to do. But if you pull it off, then yes, you want to expend all of your mana before pushing into phase 3. Expend all your mana, get killed, resurrect, and that's where you can get that mana back.
Yeah, more mana back. Yeah.
Yes, I would not recommend doing that if you don't have 2 points into the spec for the Ankh. Otherwise, that's a very advanced thing to do. If you can pull it off, absolutely go for it. You'll get that little extra bit of damage that could get you a few extra places in the parses.
Cool. And Holy Water scales with spell power. I never knew that. Does anyone know the coefficient for that?
I did not know that, and I don't know that.
Yeah, interesting. That's good to know, though.
Yes, but it's also a lot harder to pull off because with sappers are huge.
Yeah.
If you ever use a snapper, you know that they are enormous range. With holy water, they're very small, and you actually have to aim it. And I believe, is there a cast time? I'm actually not sure. I do know you have to aim it though.
You have to aim it, and
So
I think it. Yeah, I can't remember right now if there's a cast time.
I remember tried using it once, my first time I've ever used holy water, and it just didn't go off because for some reason. So I think there's a cast time to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a lot harder to utilize properly because both those packs of Draconoids are just running at you. You have to be able to predict where they're going to be. So
yeah,
that's where engineering comes into play. Where if you can't land that, you have your sappers, which will increase your You can do 24,000 damage in one sapper, so that will definitely increase your DPS for a parse in that fight alone. And then if no one else, God forbid, if your whole raid's not sappering, that's going to give you a huge boon in your DPS over others.
Absolutely. All right. Conclusions. So let's hammer this home. Elemental Shamans are not for lazy people who want to raid log and get loot once per week. I think we can definitely agree with that, right?
Oh yeah. That's the one thing I'm probably the most notorious about, really hammering home. This spec is not going to be easy. It takes a lot of gold, a lot of prep work, and frankly, it's going to wear on people very quickly if you're not ready for it. So if you're not showing up already for raids with full consumables, with full world buffs, and ready to really throw down some numbers, honestly, re-roll a mage. Because you can play a mage and not have to really do a whole lot of prep work and do the same amount of damage that an elemental shaman can. It's the honest truth. Mages are the superior caster class. If they put the same amount of effort in, they will get more damage than us. It's just the truth and honest fact. But if you are dead set on playing elemental shamans, which honestly it's a great spec for many, many, many reasons, and if you want to raid as one, you need to show up with everything and every single trick in the book that you can possibly bring forth.
Yeah. I love this second paragraph. The number one factor in improving your DPS is making your guild kill bosses faster. Use world buffs, consumes, and every trick in the book to make your DPS as good as you can. If you out-DPS quote-unquote real DPS specs with your quote-unquote meme spec, you will put a fire under their behinds to increase their DPS. That will make the encounters faster, which ultimately increases your DPS. I love this paragraph. Make your whole guild respect your DPS and show them how great Elemental Shaman can be. It's a cyclical kind of feedback loop, right?
Yes, so although actually I wrote this conclusion, I was kind of thinking of the same thing. I really like that paragraph because if you can, and it kind of boils down to it's if no one wants to bring Elemental Shaman because they think it's a detriment to the raid. But if you show people that it's not detriment in raid and then you're actually worse than them, that means they need to start because they're going to get called out. It's hey, why are you lower than Elemental Shaman? That means they're going to potentially try harder, which is going to burn a fire under your ass because you're now under them. So it's just a continual effect. It's everyone's competing. Competing breeds competition. Competition means that you're going to have better DPS. Better DPS increases your numbers overall. So it's just an infinite loop of increasing everyone's damage. Everyone's going to start coming with world buffs and GFPPs, and you're going to have a faster raid. You're going to have a more fun raid. It's just going to be better for everyone if everyone shows up to raid and kill these bosses as fast as possible and just get out. Nobody wants to raid. They just want the gear. So if you can do it faster, that's where you want to be.
Right. I'm going to make this abundantly clear to you guys. There's links in the description. We'll have the written guide where this guide was based off of, number one. Number two, the Discord link where you can talk to these fine gentlemen and get the spreadsheet. I'm not going to link the spreadsheet in the video description because the spreadsheet gets updated regularly, so I'm not going to put an old link or an old file or something like that. So you have to go to the Discord, download it from the raid section in the Discord, and you can download that spreadsheet which has the gear optimization and the what am I trying to say here, Javon?
It has all the links that you would need in there. So
exactly. Right.
So if it's going to be in the rating channel tab, and you just go to the pins, it is right there. It's the always updated one will be there. The current one is 1.8 at the moment.
Yeah.
Is the making of this video. But yeah, you just go to those tabs. You make sure you read the frequently asked questions tab before you do anything in the Discord, because that'll answer any questions that'll truly a lot of people ask about the spreadsheets, well, why isn't it working? Why isn't it doing this? Why isn't it doing that? Read the frequently asked questions. do what you can with the spreadsheets before you start asking questions, because most of the problems that have been figured out are answered in the frequently asked questions. And there's also some weak auras that I've made personally that I use, like a clear casting proc that'll show you that it's available, some handword to the Ed. Like, there's a lot of tools on that Discord alone that will help you shine as an Elemental Shaman. Not just like with the weak auras and the spreadsheet, but the people they're involved with, the conversations daily we have of anything related.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure you visit them in the Discord. Make sure you read the written guide, which will be linked there as well. And, the normal Shaman Discord will be in the link description, the one that I run, that Javon and, Tamaka's a admin in there as well, or he's a Shaman trainer. So we try to cross-pollinate with the Shaman Discords. There's like the main Shaman Discord, then there's an enhancement, elemental, and a tanking one. We all try to work together, so this is a great way of us to kind of get to know each other, and Shaman should be working together, so that's kind of the way we think about it. Javon, thank you so much for doing this, because I know, an hour and 30 minutes, I really appreciate you talking to me for this long, and I hope that the audience also enjoys this.
No, like, this is why I play Elemental Shaman. I like talking numbers, I like talking about it, I like to make sure people are aware. If you're going to delve into the spec, that you need to be aware of what you're getting yourself into. But if you can pull it off, if you can just out DPS those other casters, and even some warriors in your raid, you can hold that carrot in front of them, and it just feels so good to be able to beat real specs with a meme spec.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Classic WoW, make what you want of it. This is your game, and do what you want. If you can pull your weight, then you're not hurting anyone. You're helping them. So great. Keep on buying and grinding, everyone, and definitely make sure you visit these guys over at the Shaman Discord. Thanks so much, Javon.
Thank you.